Welcome into the Fade. I'm Clay Travis. She's Kelly Stewart. It is almost kickoff coming up soon between Penn State and Notre Dame from sunny South Florida. Kelly is in Florida, I believe, although she looks like she's about to hit the ski slopes. Good look from you there in the thermal underwear. I appreciate you getting dressed up for the show today.
First of all, this is cashmere, Clay. This is cashmere. I need you to get it right. I am freezing. I have never been so cold. I did not move to South Florida to freeze like I have been freezing the last 48 hours.
What is the temperature where you live in South Florida right now outside?
When I woke up this morning, it was 39 degrees.
Wow. That's actually legit. Yeah.
It was cold. And then when I stepped outside to get my morning sun, it was about 47. And I just went back out there in between shows. And it was a brisk 65. The sun is shining. If you're standing in the sun, it's survivable. If you're not, it is cold.
When did you turn into a weather wuss? Because you grew up in Kansas, and I'm guessing that the weather was often awful there in the winter. And also then, like, people think of Vegas as being super warm because they're out there in the summer. But Vegas actually gets pretty cold in the winter. A lot of people don't recognize it. So how long did it take you living in Florida? Because my co-host on the radio show, Buck Sexton, also is now a weather wuss. But how long did it take you to be like, oh, my goodness, it's 40, it's 54. How do people live in this?
Pretty sure growing up in Kansas, it had to be 60 degrees for you to be able to wear shorts to school. And I pushed it 56, 58. Like if it was close and I thought by 8 a.m. when that bell rang, it was going to be 60 degrees, I was wearing shorts. Like, I don't know when it really happened, but it happened, and it happened fast. I am so over being cold that I've only been cold for 2 days. I think you acclimate as you age. Maybe that's part of my problems. I'm getting old, Clay, so my circulation's not as well. I don't know. It's Florida. I don't do anything unless the sun is shining and the day is beautiful. Don't ask me to golf. Don't ask me to go to the beach. Like, I'm just a weather snob all around now.
No doubt. All right, let's dive into South Florida. You've got a game going on. You've got Penn State plus about 1.5 as the last time I looked. Let me say this too, and also the under 45.5. Inevitably, people are chirping all the time about the lines, right? We are taping this at 3:37, all right? If you see this and it is 6:30 and the line has suddenly moved a point, we're not front-running lines. We are taping this right now, and no one ever points out when the line moves against us. I've never seen – by the way, this is not just unique to this show. I did 4 years of Fox Bet Live of Lock It In, and we would do the show – and they would clip the takes. The show is live. This one will go up, I don't know, a little bit after we finish it. And then people would complain because they see the clip like a day later, all right? So locked in right now, what I am looking at, Penn State, 1.5 point underdog, over-under, right around 45.5. I am taking the under, and I'm taking Penn State. And I said this in the show right before, Kelly. I'll tell you why. Then I want to hear what your take is. I think ultimately Drew Aller is the difference maker compared to Riley Leonard at the quarterback position. Riley Leonard can make plays with his legs. I haven't seen him make dynamic downfield passing plays like I have seen Drew Aller. I think both guys have really strong run attacks. Both guys have really strong defenses. If I am projecting what I expect to happen in this game, Notre Dame matches up and says, beat us in the passing game. Penn State matches up and says, beat us in the passing game. And I think what's going to happen is Drew Aller has the best opportunity to do that. Low scoring, but Drew Aller makes one or two plays with his arm, and that is why I'm taking Penn State to win this game. What say you, Kelly?
So I don't know anybody that's taking the over here. Not a single soul on planet Earth, and I don't blame them with these two defenses, right? You have Notre Dame, who arguably is one of the best run defenses in the country. You have Penn State, who is jockeying for 1A or 1B. We saw exactly what happened to Boise State there on New Year's Eve. I want to almost be so contrarian that I want to take the over, but I wouldn't dare. You mentioned both quarterbacks, and you'll give Drew Aller the check mark. Sure, I'll give Drew the check. I don't know if that's really a compliment. Maybe it's more of, hey, Riley Leonard's not that good, right? We saw him open up the college football playoff, interception, Indiana, and he's played pretty good since. because he hasn't had to do much, right? They got up to that quick lead
Yep.
over Indiana, and their defense was able, and special teams, most notably, opening kickoff there in the second half versus Georgia, won them that game. First and foremost, I think you're paying a premium to bet Notre Dame because they beat an SEC team. And arguably, I don't think Georgia was the best SEC team, at least not that performance, right?
Without Carson Beck, they dropped off substantially. I think that's fair to say.
And especially after watching the game, because I sat right here on this program with you and I said, I don't think there's much of a drop off. Well, from the guy running the offense all season long to the guy running the offense for the fourth quarter in the SEC championship game, it was noticeable against Notre Dame. I will correct you here. I've got my odds logic screen open, Clay, and there's only 1.5 left at DraftKings. Everybody else is down to 1. And that's because earlier today, I was out car shopping with Aunt Joyce. I get a phone call.
Not to call out your numbers. In Tennessee, on FanDuel, as I am speaking to you right now, I can get Penn State plus 1.5.
Perfect. And truth be told, I can customize this odds screen and FanDuel's not on it. So just so you know, I like to keep
by the way,
a lot of the
this is actually interesting and worth mentioning to people. Lines can be different depending on what state you're in.
States.
Like
Absolutely.
There isn't one uniform thing, because if you live like where I do in Tennessee, way more people, let's say, might bet the Titans game or might bet the University of Tennessee than where you are in Florida. There's 30 states. They have different dynamic markets. Usually they're close, but I do think that's worth mentioning because your state line can be different than another state line.
Absolutely, Clay. And that's something to really consider. I love fading Florida teams when I'm in the state of Florida. Why wouldn't you? You know, you're paying a premium, maybe only 5 cents, minus 115 on each dollar, but those nickels and dimes add up, especially if you are betting nickels and dimes. So keep an eye there. But I do think that ultimately that move had nothing to do with money. I think it had to do with everybody being scared that somehow half of Notre Dame has the flu. But just 2 weeks ago, everybody told me that half of the Texas team had COVID. So what is really true? What is not? I'll say this much. I've gotten a couple of friends that are down there tailgating right now for the Orange Bowl. They're saying it is loaded with Notre Dame fans. Loaded. Maybe it's just the spot that they're tailgating could very well be, but they think it's going to be 60-40 Notre Dame fans. We're going to find out. I think this is going to be an awesome game. I don't think that I can sit here and definitively say I love one side more than another. I do think Marcus Freeman has the coaching edge. I do think there's a narrative that James Franklin can't win big games that I'd like to see him be able to surpass. As arrogant as it sounds, I'm winning money regardless of who wins this game. So I didn't bet the side, but the total just keeps dropping because nobody wants to bet the over. I think if you did not bet the under earlier in the week, you're too late to the party. Look for a better spot in game. There's absolutely going to be some opportunities. Notre Dame, since losing to Northern Illinois, has been one of the best teams in college football. You have to give them that. But I do think this game should have been closer to a pick 'em. Getting 1.5 with Penn State looks rather intriguing. And I know a lot of people that are saying, hey, not traditional, but because the college football lines are so tight, maybe look at teasing Penn State. Again, I'm not going to recommend that, but some sharper people have said, hey, listen, there's an edge here, particularly with that total.
I'm on Ohio State, and I hate to be on them in the game that's happening tomorrow, Kelly. The number's all the way out to 5.5. And I'm on the over, and that might be the total square side in both. Texas should have a home field of some degree in Dallas. My problem is I haven't been impressed with Texas all year. They lost twice to Georgia. They really almost gave away the game against Arizona State. I wasn't that impressed with them against Clemson, Kelly, in the opening round of the playoff. If you go back to the regular season, arguably their best regular season victory in conference, Vanderbilt. They really didn't play the Georgia-style elite competition. They didn't play Ole Miss. They didn't play Tennessee. They didn't play Alabama. They didn't play LSU. They didn't play a lot of the top contending teams in the SEC. And so I go back and I look at it, and I understand I've been wrong on them some, and I was wrong on them in round one. And then I bought in on round two because I thought they would handle Arizona State, and they were cruising.
You wrong? Were you really wrong in round one? I don't know if you were. I think Texas got very lucky to cover that game. That defense has been absolutely exploitable. You nailed it. You're taking the words right out of my mouth, Clay. They didn't play anybody. So, of course, their defensive metrics look like some of the best in the country. Power ratings wise, no offense to you guys down south. We all love to talk about strength of schedule. Well, Texas, outside of playing Georgia twice, did not play that tough of a schedule. And so, thus, their defense looks better than advertised. I'm not buying it. We saw Cam Skattebo absolutely, whether it was passing, which was shocking, whether it was rushing, whether it was great catches against them, dominate. Arizona State had multiple opportunities to win that football game. Texas got out very, very lucky. And I think that is built into this line, Clay. Ultimately, you are paying a premium for what happened against your Tennessee Vols and what happened in the Rose Bowl. But I think ultimately, Ohio State, after losing that Michigan game, was written off. I was one of the only people, me and my buddy Chris were the only people that bet Ohio State at plus 525, which was basically the same number that they opened up at back in June at all of these sports books to win the whole thing. I thought there was a ton of value there. Win or lose, I would make that bet all over again. I think Chip Kelly has done a tremendous job, not only altering this offense, but playing to Will Howard's strengths, right? Will Howard played at K-State. You guys can see the lovely helmet behind me. I think of any quarterback left in the college football playoff, I know most about Will. And that is because I know what his limitations are. And if you watch that Michigan game again, I missed it because I had no action on the game. He got banged up pretty bad. So they were really, really vanilla in the second half of that game. I think them losing that game, not going to the Big 12 championship was the best thing that could have happened to Ohio State. They got to lick their wounds. They got to stew in it. They got to kind of get healthy and get right for something that meant a lot more to them than it did to the Wolverines.
They've been the best team in the Big Ten, certainly in the playoff. And they've been the best team in the playoff by far. I mean, I think you would have to take Ohio State versus the field right now versus the other three. What I'll say is, after that Michigan game, Kelly, to me, it seems like Chip Kelly and Ryan Day and Brian Hartline, like they sat down and said, we have three of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And
Absolutely.
We may lose, but we're going to lose giving those guys chances to make plays. Will Howard has been very good in the passing game, but they have schemed a lot of dudes open. They've taken advantage of single coverage against Tennessee and Oregon. Nobody can cover Jeremiah Smith. And like you said, Will Howard has played better. I like Ohio State to cover. I do like the over as well. So that's college football. What do you like? Let's go to NFL wild card weekend. What do you like the most of the 6 games that are out there, Kelly?
Yeah, I think I might be on an island here. I like the Denver Broncos plus 8.5. And Clay, I came on this show all season long, and I was critical of Sean Payton keeping Russell Wilson around and then subsequently taking an absolute beating financially there and said, all right, the Broncos are just going to suck for a while. And then they draft Bo Nix, and I'm like, oh, come on, man. As a Broncos fan, I was like, really? This is what we're going to do? This has been what the Broncos have done my entire life, is draft crappy white quarterbacks. And boy, oh boy, was I wrong, Clay. I was dead wrong about Bo Nix, and I might be right in the future, but as a rookie, he has shown leadership. He has shown poise in the pocket. He has made great throws. And I think that some of these young wide receivers on the team are really hungry, but most importantly, that defense is the real deal. Here's the reality with that Broncos team. I didn't believe in them. Vegas said they were going to win 5.5 games. They were 4-1 to make the playoffs. They're playing with house money right now. Yes, love Josh Allen. Yes, I think he's the MVP. Yes, I think that him cleaning up his turnovers is the difference maker there because he's not on the best team, but he means the most to his team versus the other guys. But I think 8.5 points is a little steep. And I think the whole world is going to want to tease the Bills. I think the Broncos put up a dogfight. Again, playing with Vegas house money is never a team you want to meet in the playoffs. They're playing fun. They're having a great time. You saw it against Kansas City. Sure, it was against the backups, but they were running different schemes. They were opening up that offense and trying out different things because this isn't Sean Payton's first rodeo. And I think he's going to have this team ready for them in the playoffs. Here's the one caveat. We know in the wild card round, just pick the winner. Usually they cover as well. I don't think that's the case here. I don't think the Broncos can get the outright win. I think the Bills will get the win, but it would not shock me in the slightest to see this be a 31-30 final. Bills squeak by in the wild card round, and poor Bills Mafia almost has a heart attack because of Denver coming to town.
Look, I like the over here. That's my favorite bet in this game. This is where we would overlap. You just said 31-30. This number seems low to me at 46.5. I would be inclined to go Bills because I think they may score 35, but it wouldn't shock me at all if we had 34 points, 28 points being scored by the Broncos, to your point, playing on house money. So I like the over the most in that game. I also then slid in backdoor and said I'll take the Bills because I wanted to make a pick on every game. The game I think I like the most is I like the Chargers, Kelly, to beat the Texans on the road. I think they've got a superior offensive and defensive scheme. This is, to me, one of those interesting questions about, to me, what Jim Harbaugh doesn't get enough attention for is just getting a cultural buy-in from a team. And I know you can talk about X's and O's and everything else schematically and how it matters, but it feels to me like what Jim Harbaugh has done well, whether it's been at San Diego, Stanford, Michigan, the 49ers, or now the Chargers, all five of those places. And I mean University of San Diego, not the San Diego Chargers, because obviously they don't exist. But a lot of people don't realize he started his coaching career there, head coaching career. I think they're going to get it done. C.J. Stroud, to me, Kelly, down the stretch of this season, has started to look less like the second coming. And a lot of times we see this happen in year two. We'll see what happens with Jaden Daniels. We'll talk about him in a minute. But you have basically everybody saying, boy, this guy is going to be the second coming. He is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then they catch up with him. You start to see if somebody finds a little tweak that they're not great at, and that gets exploited and expanded by NFL defenses. And it feels to me like that's where we are with C.J. Stroud right now. Now, you mentioned Will Howard's health. Maybe C.J. Stroud's not 100% healthy. We never did get the full story here. Maybe there's something associated with that. But I like the Chargers. I feel like Justin Herbert is playing well down the stretch run. Jim Harbaugh has got this team defensively playing well all season. I like the Chargers to get the win over the Texans. It's my favorite bet of Wild Card Weekend.
Yeah, this one's tough for me. Look, here's the Chargers. You know why everybody loves the Chargers? They're 13-4 against the spread on the season. Of course, everybody loves the Chargers. They've been making their backers money all season long. And you mentioned C.J. Stroud and this Houston Texans team. 2 years ago, they were my cash cow. And you're absolutely right. Defensive coordinators, they start to find your weaknesses and they exploit them. And that is what's happened. So we're going to need to see some more growth from CJ here. And I think we could. I think that this is a little bit of a juiced up number. I made Houston a pick'em. And that should mean I should be all over them in this game, except I'm not. Here's the reality. This is the most public bet side. The bookmakers are going to be praying for an outright Houston win. But guess what they've been doing? They've been praying for dogs to win outright all season long, and they just haven't been doing it. Ultimately, I don't trust the Houston Texans here, so I'm going to pass. But I don't blame anybody for wanting to back the Chargers.
My second favorite bet, Kelly. I love the over in the Commanders always will be Redskins to me game in Tampa Bay. This number sitting right around 50.5. I think that Jaden Daniels, we just mentioned him, is going to come out and play well. Baker flings the ball all over the field. Sometimes that can be good for the Bucs. Other times it can be good for the defense. Multiple interceptions, not a crazy forecast here. Mike Evans back healthy, making plays. I like what I see from this offense on both directions. So my second favorite bet is the over. I also maybe would be a little bit inclined to take the Commanders as the road underdog. This number got out, I believe, a bit, Kelly, to like 3.5. And I feel like, to your point on the Broncos, young team playing with house money, nothing to lose in this scenario. Bucs have been a bit wobbly down the stretch. I like the over. I think both teams will score 24 or more.
Yeah, pretty much 3 across the board, Clay. Lots of 50s and even a 49.5. So I don't know who's coming in and betting the under or why on earth they want to bet the under. The Commanders, 11-6 to the over the season. The Bucks, 12-5 to the over the season. The Commanders have one of the worst defenses in the NFL. 26th in DVOA, 20 Justin yards. What on earth would you want to take an under involving this team? I think the only way this game goes under is if the Bucks defense really comes to play and the Commanders essentially get shut out. Like it would have to be like a 31-7 final. Would be the only reason why I could see this game staying under the total. I really like what Jaden Daniels has done. His, as you mentioned, as a rookie, a lot of people love to fade rookies in their opening year on the road. I really want to bet the Bucks. I think the Bucks are very highly underrated coming out of the NFC. This is going to be a tricky one, though, as you mentioned. Baker Mayfield, we know he has a good rapport in that locker room. He's done a great job post Tom Brady, at least in my opinion, right? This year, he did have 16 interceptions, though. And that is where your caveat is about why you would not, why you like the over. That is why I cannot bet the under. And that is why I cannot bet the Bucks. I do have concerns that he gets a little wild from time to time. And this is one of those games that the Bucks should absolutely win. Get right in there, get to the next round. Who are they playing? The Lions? I haven't looked at the playoff bracket yet. I believe they'd be headed to Detroit. And that is a game they have circled. I hope this team's not looking ahead because I do think they can make a sneaky run. And we know they've already beaten Detroit once this year. They might be able to do it again. That's if they can get past the Commanders in this lowly defense. I'm with you. I think this looks like dog or pass and over or pass.
All right. Let's, by the way, Adam, if he's still watching, let us know the matchups. Obviously, the challenge in the NFL is they reseed. So if you have any underdogs win, then that team would go to Detroit. So the brackets are kind of hard to project sometimes as you break down how those would go. Here are some of the other games. Steelers-Ravens. Steelers are out nearly to a double-digit underdog, Kelly. I may be the only one stepping in front of the train here. I'm taking the Steelers plus the points. And my rationale for doing so is ultimately faith in Mike Tomlin and this defense to actually come out and have some success. Now, look, Derrick Henry, 1,900 rushing yards. Lamar Jackson, best passing numbers of his entire career. I expected that duo to be dynamic. They are. But ultimately, I have a little bit of faith, at least a little bit of faith, still in the Mike Tomlin defensive talent on the Steelers. And so I'm taking them plus the big number there, 9.5. Do you have a read on this one?
Clay, I know you think you're on an island. I don't know anybody that bet the Ravens this week. I don't know a single person outside of a few people that put them in teasers early. And that is because Mike Tomlin owns the Ravens. He's covered 4 of their last 5 against Baltimore. They're 8-2 straight up in their last 10 against Baltimore. This team is Baltimore's Achilles heel. And it's basically because of their defense. Here's the problem, though. I don't trust Russell Wilson. In fact, I woke up this morning to a guy saying, are you going to apologize to Russell Wilson for your awful take? I'm like, what has Russell done outside of a few key plays this year that makes me think that he is that much different than Justin Fields? We could argue schematics here, small, minute changes. I don't think they're much different. That's my big problem. Pittsburgh, if they're going to win this game, it's going to be like 14-13. It's going to be a knockout, drag out, just dogfight. I don't think that's the case. Baltimore has been a great first half team the second half of the season. I think if you like Baltimore, you can get them under the touchdown in the first half. I think you should be looking at Russell Wilson to throw an interception. No Zay Flowers means you got to be looking at Mark Andrews or Isaiah Likely to score a touchdown. I think that this is Ravens all the way. I like this Ravens team. They've covered 5 of their last 6. They are my Super Bowl winner. I will be cheering hard for them. I just don't think I can lay 9.5. I think if anything, I'm betting them in the first half and then I'm done.
By the way, the Bucks are your 3 seed, so they would have to have some machinations to end up against the Lions going forward. But again, they reseed every week depending on what happens. So who knows exactly who will be playing who. It's why there isn't as big of an advantage of being the 1 seed as you would expect, because you still have to prepare for a lot of different teams in the event of an upset. Vikings -1.5 on the road at the Rams. This is the Monday night game. One bit of a wrinkle here, Kelly. But let me save this one because I'll come back because it can tie in with a question I'm going to ask you that doesn't have anything to do with sports gambling. Let's go to the Eagles-Packers. Jordan Love comes out injured, says he's going to be okay. You got injuries at wide receiver for the Packers. Eagles have been on fire by and large down the stretch. Saquon over 2,000 yards, looking like an absolute steal for them. Talking about dual combo with Jalen Hurts in the same way we talked about Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. You have to talk about Saquon and Jalen Hurts. I like the Eagles to come out here and win this game. I'm not that impressed. Credit to the Packers for getting into the playoffs and for playing through injury issues with Jordan Love early in the season. But I think the injuries at wide receiver are going to be impactful. I think the home field for the Eagles, I think the Eagles win this game by 7 or more. So I am taking them to cover the 4.5. What say you, Kelly?
Man, this is tough. This is the hardest game for me to pick this week, Clay. I'll be really honest with you. I know a sharp group did play Packers earlier in the week in hopes that Jordan Love was going to be healthy. I will say this much. This is an Eagles team that has been absolutely perfect in the last 2 years against top 10 scoring defenses. So I don't blame you for liking them here. I think if anything, I'm going over. That Green Bay on the road past 2 seasons, it's almost an automatic over bet. 12 of the last 15. That's where you got to be looking. Going to Philadelphia, points, whether it comes in turnovers, whether it comes in touchdowns, it doesn't matter. Remember, these two just played each other in Sao Paulo, and that was fireworks in itself. So keep in mind,
yes,
if you like, I don't care if you like either team. I think over 45 looks very, very juicy.
Let me hit this before we get into the Vikings-Rams. I'm going to cue you up for an opportunity on this too. We just finished my OutKick show, and one of the stories I meant to talk about, I did not. Keith Olbermann, late of ESPN and MSNBC, celebrated the fact that James Woods, who's a famous Hollywood actor, that his house burned down. And he basically said that he's celebrating that because James Woods is a Trump supporter. Let me say what I think, and then I'm going to tee it up for you too, Kelly. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, crazy left-winger, crazy right-winger, whatever your political opinions are. I think the idea that we have created a world in any respect where anyone would want to cheer for a home, regardless of whether you're super rich or super poor as well, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, gay, straight, trans, whatever you are, to cheer for anyone's home to be destroyed because you disagree with them politically is beyond the pale. I think that Keith Olbermann's brain is broken. I think that he is an insufferable twat. And I think that anyone who takes him seriously for any reason needs to have their actual head examined. And the fact that he would feel in any way as if he is on the side of good by rooting for anyone's house to be destroyed, I think is symptomatic of how Trump has broken Keith Olbermann's brain. Kelly, can you believe that this is where we are, regardless of what your politics are, that this would be Keith Olbermann's take on a home being destroyed?
You know, I had a good friend of mine who he and I don't completely disagree politically, but we have some various opinions, right? Particularly when it comes to you. He's not a big Clay Travis fan, but he and I talk about you quite often.
What awful taste he has.
I know, right? And I always laugh and I always say, you know what? If you met Clay, next time he's in Vegas, I'll introduce you. If you met Clay, you would not feel this way. And I feel like whether it's you, whether it's me, whether it's Keith Olbermann, the difference maker is what type of human being you are. And he told me that today. He goes, if you say that Clay is a good human, he goes, I will stop saying anything because his politics don't matter. And I think that's ultimately what it is. I like to think that, yeah, I can be a little bitchy or snippy on social media, and I might be a little smart assy here and there. But overall, I'm a good human. And that doesn't mean if I agree with California's politics that I think the city should burn to the ground, that if I disagree with Florida's politics, that they should be hit by a hurricane. People are absolutely repulsive, Clay. And the fact that you sit there behind your computer screen and cheer or celebrate anyone's downfall, whether it's another country bombing another country, or whether it's people on January 6th. I'll never forget. I was working for Bleacher Report at the time, and we got on a meeting, and I go, this is awful. And no matter how the way you look at it, these people on the other side had a various opinion of me. I said, but these people's lives are going to be impacted forever. It kind of just got a really interesting moment of silence from, some people that disagree with me politically. And they said, why? And I go, because this is a really sad time in our country that we have gotten to this point. And that's truly how I feel. Like, Keith, you are so goddamn privileged that you can sit there in your New York City brownstone and cheer for people to lose their home. How dare you? You're gross. You're an awful human being.
I agree with all of that. And what I would say is, back to less serious things, although it potentially could be impacted by the wildfires. And the reason why I mentioned that is, Kelly, they canceled or postponed the Hornets-Lakers game that was scheduled for Los Angeles tonight as we are talking. The NFL has a backup plan. They may have to move this game to Arizona because of the wildfires that are currently existing in LA. It's hard to know because the game, I believe, is Monday night. So at least it is several days from now. But this game may move to Arizona, just FYI for everybody out there who might be wondering about this, would otherwise be played in the Inglewood area of Los Angeles in SoFi Stadium. Okay, Vikings are a 1.5-point favorite over the Rams. I'm going to take the Vikings here. You know this better than most. The Vikings have been, over like the last 5 or 6 years, if you could only bet on one NFL team, the Vikings are the team that is the most disrespected, it feels like, every year. Nobody ever expects them to win. They went 14-3, lost that game, got whipped pretty solidly by the Lions to fall from potentially the 1 all the way down to the 5 on the road now to start their campaign against the Rams. We all know how good of a coach Sean McVay is, how great he is at getting his team ready. I would say the Rams kind of came out of nowhere to win this division. I don't think a lot of people expected the collapse of the 49ers to occur or for the Rams early in the season based on how they started to make this return run that they've been on. With all that said, this is a Sam Darnold game to me. He's been the comeback player of the year. He's established himself as potentially a $40 or $50 million a year guy based on the performance he has put forth after the J.J. McCarthy injury. No one saw this season from him coming. He's got the best wide receiver, I think, maybe in the entirety of the NFL playoffs. Did not look very good. Missed a lot of throws against the Lions. On the road, in theory, in L.A., might move to Arizona. I like the Vikings to get it done. What say you, Kelly?
Yeah, I like the Vikings too, Clay. Look, I understand that the Rams had a little bit of love come in early, but I think that was more the books protecting themselves from the teaser because everybody wanted to tease the Rams and Bills this week, and rightfully so. We all saw what Sam Darnold looked like at Week 18 versus Detroit, 18 for 41, 166 yards, overthrown passes. He looked, remember the clip where he was like, oh, I was seeing ghosts? Yeah, he looked like he was seeing ghosts again. And that was the Detroit pass rush just absolutely putting pressure on him. Bottom line is, I do think that Matthew Stafford gets a leg up here for having some Super Bowl experience and having some playoff experience. Remember, Sam Darnold played for the Jets and the Panthers, so he's never even been in the postseason. But I do think this is a buy low spot. Vikings have superseded expectations all season long. They covered 4 of their last 5, and they just happened to get derailed by a team who's probably going to win the Super Bowl. I do think that this is a great spot for the Vikings to bounce back, to get a win here. I don't think it matters if it's played in LA. I don't think it matters if it's played in Arizona. There's not going to be any LA fans there. We always know that the opposing team travels more, maybe due to the wildfires that subsides. But I don't think as far as a point spread, it really matters. We may see a point in the market move, but I don't think it's because the sports books are choosing to do so. I think it's somebody getting ahead of the market.
All right. Anything else that you think is out there that we need to know as we get ready for what should be, I hope, fingers crossed, 5 straight days of college football playoff or NFL playoff games, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday? I'm going to be watching them all. I bet you're going to be watching them all starting tonight. Anything else we should know?
No, that's all I got, Clay. I'm really excited for divisional weekend. I just booked my my stuff to go to the Super Bowl, so I'm excited to see you guys there. And yeah, the next month until the Super Bowl is going to be really interesting. I hope we get some new blood in there, if you know what I mean, and see how maybe Lamar Jackson can break the curse and beat Kansas City in the AFC Championship game.
I know you're on the Ravens. I want it to be a Bills-Lions Super Bowl because I want one of those teams guaranteed with their fan bases to actually get a Super Bowl. That would be amazing. All right, we'll be back next Thursday with the Fade. I appreciate all of you, and hopefully we'll make you some money with some of these picks. Kelly, good stuff. See you guys next week.